we said, in other states where we have to petition to get onto the ballot, we're held to a very strict standard. If we don't make the deadline, if we don't get enough signatures in, for example, for a state that requires ballot signatures, petition signatures to get on a ballot, such as West Virginia, and we didn't get enough in time in West Virginia, then we're off the ballot. We said, seems to us fair that the same sort of criteria, the same legal standard be applied to the Democrat and Republican parties. And if they fail for their own reasons to meet the deadline, and it wasn't like the deadline was all of a sudden sprung on them at the last minute, it's been on the books for years, then they ought to pay the same price that we are. That is, we're off the ballot. So we actually filed a lawsuit in Texas standing for that very revolutionary principle that the law means what it says and ought to be enforced according to the terms of the law itself. Unfortunately, the Texas Supreme Court didn't see it that way and rejected our petition. They did it without even a written opinion, so we didn't have any basis on which to appeal. It indicates, again, just how strongly the system, the current status quo system, is rigged against any third party or independent candidate. Even if the laws and the rules say one thing, the powers that be will interpret those in a way that simply helps the status quo parties. It wasn't surprising to it. It's disappointing, certainly, to have a court uphold the principle that the law, is only going to be applied for a particular group of people. But we're going to keep pushing. One of our goals this election cycle is to obtain a sufficient percentage of vote in a lot of key states around the country so that we won't have to go through this process of gaining ballot access every cycle, which is very time-consuming and very expensive for the Libertarian Party. The Democrat and the Republican parties get automatic ballot access. If we can get a certain percentage of the vote in a number of key states, we'll be able to have that, and we can put our time and our effort not so much into simply getting on the ballot to provide a real choice for the electorate, but on the substantive issues.
I was wondering how a free market economy would solve the credit drought.
I think in large measure, the credit drought or the freeze in the credit markets is largely the result of many of these institutions that would otherwise be able to extend credit, certainly to each other, is the result of government interference in the first place. In other words, you have institutions that don't want to move back into the marketplace or free up the marketplace because of either the uncertainty about what the government is going to do, or, for example, in the case of some of these institutions, if they can, in fact, if they believe they're going to be able to get the government to buy up their assets at a much higher percentage on the dollar than if they went out on the open market, they're just going to sit back and not sell on the open market, not negotiate with suitors, for example, waiting for the government. So I think it's largely the result of government, the government bailout and bailouts, freezing in place the markets. Are there some things that are, even though not from a strict market standpoint, appropriate that the government could be doing short of what they are doing? Absolutely. I mean, if the government has to, or if the government is definitely going to do something here, I would much prefer them to see them, for example, extend a line of credit or loan to these financial institutions rather than buying up and thereafter controlling them, such as was done with Chrysler. I don't favor that, but I think that would be much preferable to the nationalization scheme that we're seeing implemented now.
I'd like to ask you about the Supreme Court and federal judiciary in general. What requirements or what kind of characteristics would you look for in judicial nominees? First part of the question. Second part of the question, what's the best and worst Supreme Court decision in the past 100 years and why?
What I would like to see with regard to Supreme Court justices would be a justice that actually understands the makeup of our government and what checks and balances and competing interests are, and the proper role not just of the courts but of the executive branch and the Congress as well. In recent years, for example, in very recent months, Justice Kennedy, who was the swing vote on a couple of the final court decisions of its term that ended this summer, I think does understand that. He was the swing vote in the Boumediene case, the habeas corpus case, that chastised the Congress and the administration for shenanigans with monkeying around with the great writ of habeas corpus. And he was also the swing vote which struck down the District of Columbia gun ban, 30-year-old gun ban. Now, both of those decisions were 5-4 decisions. To me, they both should have been 9-0 because, to me, the issues were so very clear. Of course, the Second Amendment reflects a guarantee of a personal right. Just the language, the context is part of the Bill of Rights, the history of it. It's about as self-evident, I think, as you can get. Yet it was a very close decision. But Justice Kennedy, I think, understood, not for policy reasons, unlike some of the other justices. His decision was not a policy one, but was based on a proper understanding of the Bill of Rights and the different components of our government. And in the habeas case, the Boumediene case, which was decided just a couple of weeks before the Heller case, the D.C. gun ban case, he also, I think, properly understood what was going on, not just substantively, but with regard to the process of our government and how the different parts are supposed to work, that there is a role for the Congress. It's laid out with regard to habeas corpus, when it can be suspended, and he reminded his fellow justices that the administration has no power to do that. There's no power that the administration has to suspend habeas corpus for any reason. And if Congress is going to do it, it has to do it and can do it only for those reasons laid out in the Constitution. Probably the worst case, and certainly in modern times, would have been the Korematsu case involving the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. There's not only was the case based on bad facts, the hysteria and the misstatements by the government in the case, but it was based on terrible, terrible law. So I think that was probably the, if not the worst case, certainly one of the worst cases in recent decades. In terms of better decisions, best decisions, certainly Brown v. Board of Education. Certainly, I think the Boumediene case was just decided as a very important case. Maybe not a seminal case up there with Brown and some of the other cases, but a very, very important case to simply reassert the rule of law in our country. We've come so far away from this notion that we're a nation that is ruled by laws, not by the whims of man, that we needed reminding of that. And at least in that one case, we were reminded.